estate agency in 2036. Today, I'm joined by the wonderful David Powell, who's the CEO of Andrews, the estate agency chain that runs from Bristol all the way down to London on the M4 corridor. Thanks for joining me today. Now, David, you are a CEO of a 40-branch network, so you're a pretty big player in the game. Where do you see estate agency in 2036? Talk to me.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, Chris. I think the industry, I've been in it for 26 years and it's been on
You
its
obviously
journey.
started as a teenager.
I started just 19. So I did, and the industry's been on a bit of a journey through that time, and I think that journey's probably taken longer than it should have done to get to where we are now. But we're at an interesting point where we're seeing different models within the industry, which I think is great. And I think through all of that, I don't think any of them actually in its current disguise are fit for what 2036 may look like, but they will certainly inform what 2036 will look like as an industry. And I'm quite intrigued to see how that develops and what that's going to be.
Well, if you roll the clock back, a number of years, the corporate estate agency tended to have about 35, 36, 37% 10 years ago. Now she's at 29, 30, and the corporates are slowly diminishing and the independents have grown. But then we've got that thing called self-employed estate agency. And do you think that is the future of estate agency in 2036?
In its current disguise, Chris, no.
Okay, interesting. Because everyone's talking about it, aren't they?
It's a great topic, and I remember the independent versus corporate days, and big conversation was, corporates are better than independents, independents are better than corporates, and quite frankly, the only people that cared were people that worked in either of them.
Yes.
And then it was probably the portals that came along to eradicate the relevance
Because
of
it created a level playing field, didn't it?
You can now market a property and it would get to everyone in the country. So
Yeah.
that kind of took away the big significance, if you like. Now we're into the conversation is self-employed personal agency versus corporate versus independent versus employed. And for me, it's not particularly any more interesting than whether or not you're independent corporate 20 odd years ago.
Don't let anyone from EXP hear you saying that, because they're banging on about it all the time.
I think in the self-employed world, there's some great things happening. I don't think it's what the future looks like, nor do I think the current setup of high street agents is necessarily what the future looks like.
I mean, ultimately, we're talking about what the vendor cares about.
Yeah.
Do you think the vendor cares what model is
I
selling
don't.
their house?
It always makes me smile, this one, because I can't think of too many other industries where people talk about what the right model is for their customer. You don't hear it in a car sales garage. You don't hear it in a dentist. Whether or not they're employed, self-employed, I don't think the consumer is interested.
Really gives the monkeys, do they?
No, they don't. Would be my belief.
What do vendors care about?
Vendors want to transact with a reputable brand, an agent. They want to have the reassurance you're going to look after them. And they want to ensure, their biggest financial asset is going to be handed over to someone to be looked after, and they can trust them. I think that's the most important things.
I mean, everyone's banging on about the self-employed model, but I mean, if you actually look at the numbers, the average number of houses they're selling is 1.5, 2 a month. It's not a lot, is it?
No, there are some doing incredibly well, and fair play to those people that are doing so, and some not, and that's probably no different to high street agents as well. But I think you got to look at the purpose of why someone is self-employed, and you've got to look at that to where's the benefit for the customer. Now, whether or not you're self-employed or employed, and I think the journey of self-employment has changed. It was all about get your time back, drop your kids off to school, go to the clubs,
nativity play, sports day,
of which fine, and that was where the journey started, which is fine. Then you realise actually, if you want to run your own business, actually you've actually got to put
more hours in.
You've got to put more hours in. So
because you've you've run your own estate agency because
Yeah.
it's not as if you've been through the ranks and been wrapped in cotton wool as the
No,
CEO.
no, and it's hard. It's hard when you open the door and the first day you're ready. Doesn't mean everyone else is, and you got to find that first instruction from somewhere. So it's I guess when you look at the journey here, it's gone from you get your own time back to well now actually it's about personal brand and I'm supportive of that. I think to a point it is, but you know, what are you creating? And I think that's the question I've got. Are you creating a business? And I think the challenge with creating a business when it's so reliant on your personal brand and on you, um, I'm not convinced you're building a business. I think what you're building is a job. And I think that's the challenge. So if you wanted to go and sell that business, who's going to buy it? Because if you are the business, you're no longer there.
I don't disagree with you. I do not disagree with you, but ultimately, in a state agency, you can't. Estate agencies themselves aren't actually worth that much at the moment. The business, the values in the lettings book.
Yeah.
So there is just because you've got a business doesn't mean you're ever going to sell it.
No. So you're back to what you created as a job. And there's some real benefits with that,
But
Chris.
then you could create lots of income because if you do it right, you could then
Yeah.
put that into property or other investments that.
Absolutely. And look, if what you're in for it is to create a job with perhaps some flexibility and the potential perks of higher revenue, then that's absolutely great. Certainly not going to knock anyone that tries it. And but again, you're back to that point to the beginning of the conversation, Chris. What's the benefit to the customer? And I think that's what we're trying to get to. Where does the customer benefit so that you know in 2036 this is the right model?
You see, interesting. You used the word personal agent, and which is, in my opinion, something completely different to personal brand. Okay, let's put that aside. A personal agent is someone who takes full responsibility from start to finish. I'm of the opinion, I don't know what your opinion is that when they split the neg roll up from the valuer roll up, that was the start of the decline of a state agency. And by bringing it all together, there is accountability from start to finish. Do you do you, as an industry?
Yeah.
I mean, I appreciate you've got negs and valuers.
Yeah.
Personal agent, ultimately, personal it all comes down to responsibility, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Accountability.
It, it does, and that's wrapped up in different ways, depending different models. And I think it's and what a lot of businesses are facing with, our marketplace is pretty much middle market. So
Three
your
bed semi land,
three
four
bed
bedroom
semi,
box. Yeah.
4 bedroom houses, so you're dealing in volume. And that's where it's quite difficult sometimes to look after that process from begin to end.
Yes.
So that would be the challenge we've got. And I think where we see personal agency, in my mind, I think where it works quite well is particularly higher end, where you're not driven by volume.
Okay.
And I can see something in that. So you've got that time to dedicate to less clients. I think the challenge is trying to move through sufficient volume with the fee levels that are currently out there at mid-market to be able to look after that process
Do
from
you
beginning
do
to
you
end.
think you can run a separate neg and valuer if the values and the way everyone's led and managed works well? Because a lot of estate agents, they don't work well. It's them and us, negs and valuers,
Yeah.
chalk and cheese.
Yeah, I'd like to think that's not that's not what happens in our group. I'd like to think that they are very much combined. And look, our valuers still sell houses as well, and some of our negs will also value.
Next, you'll be telling me that the valuers actually do all the vendor management as well.
But look,
I should hope they.
I think there's a significant crossover. I don't think it's certainly in Andrews, it's not so defined. You're a neg, you can only do this. You're a valuer, you can only do this. It can't work like that largely because look, staff numbers in branches aren't significant. So, yeah, they will have to help each other out. It's just, yeah, you will have part of their role where their skill set is more defined to a certain area.
And again, we've kind of answering the question by attacking it from different angles. Do you think there is in 2036? And I know you can only speak. I'm going to say speaking for yourself, and then I also want you to talk about the industry as a whole. But those more incumbent brands, which you are one, long-standing brands, do you think either you or the industry might open up to self-employed agents working under brands?
Yeah, I think that's certainly a direction the industry is going towards. So, we've seen some start that journey. I think for me, it's trying to understand where the real benefit is to customer, to employee or self-employed person. And I think, in 10 years' time, we are probably going to see more of a mix. And you will have self-employed people sitting under.
Yeah, because it's going to be challenging for the likes of you because you've got someone who's working under your brand, but you can't control.
Yeah, yeah, which is perhaps not too dissimilar to franchise agreements that
True.
have been around for a little while. So, yeah, you'll have I dare say, a set of rules to abide to in order for them to to maintain that license, if you like.
So let's just go through what we've said, what we've agreed on is that it will change, but probably not massively. If it is going to change, more of the corporates potentially could go down self-employed because if they start losing their star value as to EXP or TA UK or others are available, um, it's a death by a thousand cuts. But those networks will obviously have to control and keep the brand in a good way because you don't want to ruin the brand. But ultimately, it comes down to what's best for the vendor.
That's ultimately going to be the winner. If you focus on what's right for the vendor rather than what's right for the individual, then you get to the
And I think you've hit the nail on the head.
ideal
Thank you
scenario.
for your time today, David.